watching Reality Check. The chaos and crowds at Kabul airport might be coming to an end. Not because the bottlenecks have been resolved, the bottlenecks that fueled devastating moments like Afghans falling off the sides of airplanes or babies being handed over barbed wire fences to soldiers. But it might be coming to an end because the Taliban now says that it won't allow Afghans to be evacuated, even as they've rejected. The Taliban has rejected America's request to extend the deadline for evacuation beyond the end of the month, just 6 days away. Only foreign nationals can now leave, say the Taliban. In fact, Afghanistan's new rulers have called for a stop to a brain drain, asking those with talent like doctors and lawyers and the like to stay back. That they have nothing to fear from the so-called changed Taliban is what the group is saying. To bolster these claims that they've had some kind of a makeover, the Taliban have intensified a propaganda push, with their spokespersons tweeting photos of women at the office of a Taliban official serving as the governor to the province of Herat in the west, tweeting videos of girls going to school like this one in Taliban-controlled Kunduz province in the north, and also tweeting a video of a young woman who's been randomly doorstepped on the streets of Kabul, who breaks into English as she defends the Taliban regime and urges foreign agencies and Afghan women to not leave the country.
We request to the United Nations, European Union and all international communities not leave Afghanistan as we are facing economical crisis. So women in Afghanistan is requesting to the Afghan citizen they should not afraid from Taliban government, and they must have to continue their daily routine works. Schools, universities and institutions and other organizations needs to be reopened like the previous government.
This at the same time as a Taliban spokesperson appearing to walk back on the group's claims of greater freedoms to women, saying women should remain at home till their fighters are better oriented at dealing with women. All right, joining me tonight on Reality Check, we have with us Mariam Safi. She is the founding executive director of the Organization for Policy, Research and Development Studies. She's also been a lecturer on peace and conflict at the American University in Afghanistan. Ashraf Haidari is with us, former Afghanistan ambassador to Sri Lanka. Jonah Blank is with us. He's a former policy advisor to Joe Biden. He's a foreign policy expert, National University of Singapore, RAND Corporation. Thank you all so much for joining us. Ashraf Haidari, let me just start by asking you what you make of these new claims by the Taliban that saying, look, now we're stopping Afghans from leaving, don't do a brain drain, you're not under any threat here. Are you at all convinced by this?
Well, first of all, I'm still the ambassador of Afghanistan, still operating the embassy very effectively in Colombo.
Okay, I beg your pardon. I don't know why it had you down as former, but good to know you're still in the saddle. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, we're still fighting back. Unfortunately, no. I think if they really try to gain any kind of recognition for anything that they have so far claimed to be doing to move in the right direction, then they should abide by the international obligations, international humanitarian law and human rights law, which include safe freedom of movement, including safe passage for any evacuations of the professionals that we have been seeing leave Afghanistan simply because of either direct fear of threat to their lives or fear of persecution that may have already been happening across Afghanistan. Remember that our free press in the region has already disappeared, unfortunately, and there is more and more control on even the press and the journalists have left. And the lady a while ago that was talking, I really recognize her accent not to be Afghan. Afghans don't speak with that kind of accent. I don't know what she was saying, but if she was saying anything condone the Taliban, I believe she was probably most likely not an Afghan. She was speaking with this very heavy.
Oh, I see. Interesting. You're saying she didn't sound Afghan. I can tell you, she was speaking in English. She was basically saying UN agencies, other global agencies, don't go away. It's all great here under the Taliban. Women shouldn't go away. They should stay. It's all going well. So, yeah, it was.
I disagree, and Mariam could talk to that because she's been on the ground and worked with the Afghan women across the country. So it is very unfortunate that the Taliban have threatened to stop Afghans from leaving if they wish to do so.
Right.
The 7 summit just concluded with a very strong statement pointing out this very issue that if the Taliban threaten this, then of course they shouldn't expect in the way of
yes, it is. No, it is unfortunate. Mariam, let me ask you about what you think about this idea of that it's all fine and professionals and doctors should stay back. From your own experience of talking to people and so on, what are you hearing?
Well, the reports that are coming from international media, national media sources are repeating a contradictory image. See, on the one hand, the Taliban said the right things when they entered Kabul and they took over. And that was that women and girls to school, and government show and to work. And I think they were going around the city and announcing this on microphones for to work. If back to school,
okay,
fear reported. My
right.
media.
Okay, Mariam, we just seem to be having a little bit of an issue with your audio. We'll just fix it and come back to you. But Jonah Blank, just wanted to ask you from the American perspective, because we've heard so many different variations of a same theme, of a sense of not just anger at how the Taliban have come in, but also of the sense of being betrayed by America. And the most recent was a piece written by General Sami Sadat, who's was Afghan Special Forces, and then he was further elevated. And he wrote an op-ed in the New York Times. He was amongst the few generals who was actually fighting the Taliban in Kandahar and Helmand, which, as you know, are their strongholds. And he, of course, spoke bitterly about the corruption in the Afghan army and being let down by the Ghani regime and the leadership. But he also was very, very scathing about what he felt was a betrayal by the Americans. The rapidity with which they pulled out, he said, left the Afghan army in the lurch.
Thank you, Srinivasan, for having me. And I agree with everything that Ambassador Hydari has said and what I could hear of Mariam's statement as well. I think that there is a lot of blame to go around, and Americans really have to assume their role, their share of that blame. And from my perspective, that blame attaches to all 4 of the U.S. presidents who have been involved with this, and even the presidents who came before 9/11, who helped fuel this civil war that has been going on since 1979. I don't think anybody has clean hands here, and I think a lot of the criticisms that have been made are valid. That's a different question than the question of whether the U.S. should have stayed. And I believe that the general whom you've referenced was really referring to the way in which the U.S. left,
yes,
rather than the decision to leave.
Of
and
course.
I think that I haven't seen his particular critique, but there are a lot of very valid critiques to be made.
Right. No, absolutely. Fair enough. Let me also just bring in Hanif Sufizada. He is, I believe, a former Afghan government official who managed to evacuate, and he's joining us now on the show. Thank you, Hanif, for joining us. You described the harrowing experience you had in attempting to leave Afghanistan, something which many Afghans are going through. Tell us a little bit about that, and also about now this idea that the Taliban is saying, oh, it's safe to stay for people like yourself. There's no, we shouldn't have a brain drain. Everything's going to be fine.
Well, thank you very much for having me tonight. It was a very fear-filled journey, a 5-day fear-filled journey from Kabul all the way to Omaha, Nebraska, here in the United States. The situation was very chaotic, and when I went to inside the airport, first I was not able to get into the airport because there was a lot of traffic and there was a lot of high-ranking officials. It was the first day when President Ashraf Ghani left the country, and the whole government was in doldrum. Nobody knew what to do next, so everybody was trying to flee the country. So I was lucky to be amongst the first group of people who entered the premises of the airport. When I entered the airport, then I saw that, okay, there's another chaos going on there. So there were no seats or no civilian airplanes. Everybody was waiting for somehow to get out of the country. Even the high-ranking officials were unseated from their airplanes.
Oh, I see. So you could see all these high-ranking officials trying to flee, while you were there, but they didn't have a seat. I mean,
yeah, they didn't have a seat. Even I saw the minister, the home minister, the interior minister was just running with me here and there, looking for an evacuation by the Americans. I don't know whether he made it or not because we lost each other at the end of the day, but it was a very difficult night. When I entered the area, there were also some Indians and some Africans and some other nationalities with me, even one German boy, and there was another German girl and a British girl. But because there was mob and there was confusion, the American Marines were not able to discern who is who. They could not differentiate.
Right.
So they were commanded not to let anybody in. So that was the sort of the confusion we were caught up. And on the other hand, outside they were Taliban. We could not go out. Inside they were gunshots. So there was a lot of fear, and that was sort of confusion that we were caught in. And then on the other hand, we were not able to find food or water to drink or bathroom to go in. That was another tricky situation. But we survived, and we held our nerves high. We said that I think this is the time that this is a time of patience and perseverance that we have to undergo. And then finally, we had to beg the American Marines that please let us go in because we are not a part of the mob. We are people who were living in the United States. So I was a green card holder and others were other nationalities. But still, as they were telling us, okay, we will help you out. But it was mob who was not letting them even to help us. So that was the situation we were caught in. But finally, we were lucky enough to finally convince one of the Marines so that they can take us. And it was after more than 28 hours that we finally made it to go to the we call it Gate 9.
Right, and you first went to Doha, is it? And then
yes, we went to Doha, Qatar, and from there after 2 days, then we went to Kuwait, and from Kuwait we came to Washington D.C.
Okay, but let me ask you, Hanif, what I asked you at the outset, that why did you feel the need to leave? Were these assurances by the Taliban not convincing? That look, you can stay, it's safe, there's an amnesty to everyone who worked in the government?
Well, there is a general amnesty announced by them, but I'm just hearing news that they're still threatening people because of their past experience or their past work with the Afghan government, or especially with the U.S. government. Since I work with the U.S. university in Afghanistan, and I was really feeling threatened, and I was fearing for my life and those are for my family members. So
sure.
I said that this is the right time to leave the country. If you're caught up and stay late, then things will change and I may not be able to get out. But there was always the urgency to leave as soon as possible because of the past experience we had with Taliban.
Sure, no, I understand that. Mariam, we have you back. I hope we have a clearer line to you. I just wanted to ask you, though, that is there a counter worry here that if a lot of people, professionals, doctors, lawyers, etc., leave, and they may have very valid reasons for fearing the Taliban, does that create a problem, though, for the Afghans who stayed behind? Because you do need all these professionals and others to basically look after society.
Yes,
I just wanted to ask. Sorry, I was just asking Mariam that. Hanif, let me just come back to you. Yes, Mariam.
Yes, what we are seeing can be described as a brain drain. So it is a brain drain. You are losing the capacity that had been built in the last 20 years, or some of that capacity. But we have to understand that why are these individuals leaving? It's what others have said today is that perception of fear that the Taliban would bring back that regime that they had in 96 till 2001. And from what we are seeing on the ground in terms of reports coming from the type of governance structure that might be developed, such as a council of elders led by one individual, it doesn't show signs of an inclusive government. So when individuals, when you're seeing the brain drain, there's a perception of fear, and that perception of fear is starting to be supported by evidence when we're seeing what is coming out of the leadership of the Taliban. Now, on the other hand, what this also shows to us is that there is going to be a whole new generation that we will have to work with to build their capacities.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying, but Ashraf Haidery, again, there's this question over whether it's of course valid to fear the Taliban, but is there really evidence to suggest that things are going to be that bad? I just want to ask you about yourself, for instance. We spoke about this earlier, about you and all the other diplomats heading these missions. Have you got any indication from the new regime about, are they continuing to maintain this presence? Are you still recognized as the ambassador of the new regime, or how is that working?
Well, unfortunately, I really see it very strategically because I've been a diplomat. I know who and which actors are behind the Taliban. Remember that they are, at the end of the day, a proxy, and they would continue to be a proxy serving not so much the long-term interests of Afghanistan, but other interests that are prioritized, over the best interests of the Afghan people. And the Taliban had every opportunity just over the past 3 months, a month ago, a week ago, even right, as they approach the gates of Kabul, they had an opportunity to prevent this situation from happening, and working diplomatically and politically to make the orderly transfer of power happen, and then make a commitment to establishing an inclusive government on which there are a number of actors on the ground, including the former President Karzai, of course, chairman of the High Council on National Reconciliation, has been working. But we don't see the kind of results, even from their talks and meetings, that should be, reassuring and assuring the Afghan people, and especially the employees of government or us like me.
You're right. It's been a lot of meetings and photo ops, but nothing concrete. But just Absolutely. To the point about somebody like yourself, because it's now been almost close to 2 weeks since this change of regime. You continue to function as ambassador in what sense? Because last time you said the president in that sense never resigned. President Ghani never resigned. He just left. So is it still under the flag of the earlier or the sort of a republic?
Yes, the republic is still there with the internationally recognized state of Afghanistan. Of course, the Taliban are a long way from getting that recognition, especially in light of this recent G7 summit. If you look at their statement, they're very clear, and they're very strong statement of telling the Taliban that recognition would not be forthcoming unless you ensure an inclusive government that is meaningful, that is not what just described as just this, Amir at the top and a council, and then the rest. Well, the Amir and the council being very much manipulated and controlled remotely to achieve other ends than the goals of post-conflict reconstruction, sustainable development, and inclusivity, that the role of women is ensured based on the achievements of the past 20 years. So those signs are not there, and as a result, we are still around. We're still speaking. We're still serving.
That's good to know.
Afghanistan, yes, consistent with the gains of the.
Okay, that's good to know. It's always good to have some continuity. But I just want to ask Jonah Blank.
There's a lot of support from the United States Congress. If you just go and see how many members of the U.S. Congress have come out to take the blame for what has happened, as Jonah Blank pointed out, and also to criticize the president and to call on them to do the right thing henceforth, which is,
but
not getting into the recognition business.
Okay, but Jonah Blank, when it comes to America doing the right thing, it seems that America is just largely negotiating just to make sure that it can get all its people out in time. But even that, I mean, we heard that the CIA director flew down and had a secret meeting with a top Taliban official to try and get the Taliban to extend the deadline. The Taliban seems to have said no. What are you hearing about how that's going to play out? I mean, let's say that you're not able to get everybody, the Americans are not able to get everyone out in time. Will they insist on extending the deadline even if that comes with a risk, or how is that going to play out, do you think?
Well, I think that all American citizens will be taken out. President Biden has made that quite clear. However, the real question will be, what about the Afghans who have placed their trust in America, particularly what are called the SIVs, Special Immigrant Visa applicants.
Yes.
That is, Afghan citizens who have served as interpreters very often for the U.S. military and who are at dire risk of death and possibly their families at risk as well. Their numbers, including family members, may be 80,000, maybe 100,000. In addition, there are many Afghans who have not worked for the U.S. government, but who have also been at great risk, whether these are human rights advocates, members of the press, other people who would be the top of the Taliban's target list.
So what happens to them
in case the Taliban they get out?
Right. So what happens to them if the Taliban refuses to extend the deadline and not all of them were, able to get out?
My fear is that they will all be at very great risk.
Oh dear. But Hanif, just to come back to you, the question that I asked Mariam, that while people like yourself may feel fearful and want to leave, where does that leave then the Afghan people? I mean, those who can't leave.
Well, that is really a troubling situation, because the Afghans need an assurance. The economy will collapse if there's no money coming in Afghanistan. So even if people stay back in Afghanistan, if there's no Taliban threat, there will be hunger threat, there will be crime threat. So all these compounding issues, they will be engulfing the Afghan nation as a whole. So, I mean, first the Taliban needs a recognition so that people trust them. And then we need a guarantee that Taliban will not harm women, men who have already worked with the previous government. Or, they had to work in one way or the other, and they were trained in the last 20 years.
Okay, but if you see evidence of that, will somebody like yourself consider going back?
Well, of course, why not? This is our nation. We will work for the state of Afghanistan. The forms of government may change, but we need that forms of government to respect human dignity and respect women and minorities. Of course, why not?
All right, okay. Well, let's see how it plays out, but thank you all so much for joining me on Reality Check, and thank you so much for watching. Good night.